Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are back with Tony Sayers, who is going to offer us a discussion on clearing etheric interference. This is very interesting because it's going to help us stay centered and avoid being knocked off kilter. Hi, Tony. Thank you for being here. Welcome back.
Hi, Lauren. Yeah, thanks for having me back after all this time. It's good to see you again.
Yes, it's good to be here. So let's begin with the definition of etheric interference. What's going on here?
Well, I mean, just as out there in creation, I'm sure there is good stuff going on as well. I guess my thing is I deal with the dumpster truck side of things. I think that's it's perhaps less glamorous than some of the other things that people talk about and deal with, but in my opinion, it's really just as important because it's important that we're aware of both sides. And yeah, what I really deal in is I call myself as like the human road sweeper. So I kind of clear out all the junk that shouldn't be there, the etheric junk that shouldn't be there, that holds us back and can cause real issues in our lives, and just make the whole process a lot more difficult. And it also makes us feel drained energetically when this stuff is there. So I guess you could say that I focus on all of that stuff, and I clear that stuff and all the stuff that shouldn't be there. So you're talking about things like entity attachments, overlays, holographic themes, etheric AI implants, and other etheric interference around those kind of things. So there's a whole plethora of interference that we're subject to, because there are forces out there that perhaps don't have our best interests at heart and are trying to hold us back from expanding and becoming the best versions of ourselves. So they know the power of humans, and so what they need to do is hijack us somewhat so we don't truly step into our power, because then there's no food for these entities to feed on, because we are incredible, powerful energy generators as humans. And a lot of what this is about is them using our energy as a source of food, just like we eat as our source of food. There's also entities out there that do that as well. So they will attach themselves and feed on that energy. And so I guess, yeah, what I do is I look to clear as much of that stuff as possible, in order to help people liberate themselves energetically, so they have more energy, so they're not feeling so drained, so they have clearer thought processes. Because a lot of these attachments can often loop negative thoughts round and round our head, and actually when you remove a lot of this junk, you do tend to find that you have clearer thoughts, and yeah, they're not so evasive. So that's basically what I do.
Yes, it's really very interesting. And I know that we get asked all the time as people become aware that they have an entity attachment. So it's really good that you do this work on the planet. And so when you are working with your clients, what do you see? How do you begin to identify someone with an entity attachment or an AI implant? Do you see things within their physical form, or can you explain what happens?
Yeah, so I've been doing this 10 years now. So I think I've been on your show a number of times down those years. So a lot of it comes with experience. When you've been doing anything for a long period of time, you get to be, or hopefully you would get to become quite proficient at it. And I guess this is the case with what I do. And your other guests, perhaps they've been doing things a long time, they become proficient at what they do too. So a lot of it comes from experience and knowing that there's certain things that everyone will have. There'll be certain implants that everyone will have. For example, I know that whoever I work on, there is bound to be etheric implants around the heart. The heart is a very targeted area because these entities, they don't like the expansion of the human heart. The frequency is not good for them to have an expanded heart in that way. So I know for a fact that whoever I work on, that at some point during the session, I'll need to look at that area. There's also certain entity attachments or entity races that attach themselves to pretty much everyone. You have certain entities, you know, such as serpent entities and demiurge, things like that. Generally, most people have some level of interference from those entities, and everyone basically has interference. It's just some people will have more than others, and some people might be targeted differently. So quite often, a lot of people that are here right now, I don't really like using the word targeted because it then starts to fall into like victimhood and that kind of thing. But everyone is gifted. You know, you have gifts that I don't have. I have gifts that you don't have, and other people have their gifts and qualities as well. And those gifts and qualities represent a threat to some of these darker forces. Because if you're allowed to do what you do unchecked without any interference, you're going to be even more potent at what you do. And so what they do is they try and throw curveballs and spanner in the works to try and hold you back, slow you down. And this can sometimes result for some people in a certain amount of difficulties during their life. And some people from birth have reported feeling interference, and that can be as something as simple as, it doesn't necessarily mean that someone's going to write books and speak great truth and stuff like that. It could just mean, for example, that maybe you're going to be a parent and you're going to raise conscious children that are going to become, you know, conscious themselves, so that represents a threat to these forces. Or maybe you're highly empathetic, if I can say it right, highly sensitive person. I call those kind of people like transmuters of negative energy. These are the sort of people that, for whatever reason, you'll just go into a room with them and you'll just feel good. You know, we all know people like that in our life. They hold a lot of light. Their frequency naturally seems to be quite high. So those people are often subject to a lot more interference and a lot more with being messed with, because these darker forces, they don't want that person to be in their expanded, high frequency, high vibrational form, you know, throughout the day. So they need to try and hijack that and do what they do to try and lower that person. And so yeah, everyone has interference, and like I say, some people have more than others. For example, if you have someone that I don't know, ex-alcoholic, ex-drug addict, those things definitely lower our frequency to their level, and so they can quite often have a lot of attachments, a lot of interference through their behavior. So this is why we might want to consider not drinking alcohol, for example. You know, spirits, they're telling you what it is. And another example would be, in my experience down the years, maybe someone that's sadly been abused in some way in childhood. They can quite often have a lot of attachments through the trauma. The general rule of thumb is every time you alter your frequency, it can potentially open you up to stuff. So, for example, alcohol, drugs, things like that, things like extreme trauma. That is a very strong altering of consciousness, and it almost opens a doorway or a portal for some of these more negative beings to infiltrate and then attach themselves. So So the question, so the answer is really everyone has stuff going on. It's just some people have more than others, and I always try and spin it on its head. You know, I always say if you feel like you're being drained and you're being messed with, then there's something about you that they don't like, and that means there's some incredible quality that you've got that maybe you need to tap into or realize. So I always try and flip these things on their head, because the reason that they do this stuff is because we are incredible beings. We're incredible, powerful energy generators. And really, it's frustrating, because if we only knew how powerful we are, then we wouldn't be walking around, most of us, with this, you know, not feeling good enough, not feeling worthy. And you know, the fact is that it's the complete opposite that's true, and these entities know that, but they need to keep you thinking, little me, I've got no power, you know, all this stuff. And so, you know, that's what a lot of the mind looping is about. You know, a lot of the time we're subject to this mind looping 24/7. And it's only when you remove this stuff you realize that it wasn't your own thoughts in the first place. You know, most of the thoughts that we have are not our own in that respect. They're either these entities or implants and stuff like that. So the question of how I do it, as I said, you know, a lot of it is experience, knowing where to look. But I also sense and feel, but also clairvisual abilities as well. Over the years, I've developed those, and I'm not here saying that, you know, I'm the only one that can do that. We all have the ability. We all have psychic abilities. It's just the problem has been is that we're not taught about them at school. And then when you get to our age, you know, people like, oh, that Tony is crazy, you know, he's remote viewing and all this stuff. So it's kind of taboo. But we all do have these abilities. It's just like any muscle. Unless you use them, you lose them. And so I guess the difference between myself and Joe Blogs, it's like I've been practicing and strengthening this muscle day in, day out for the last 10 years. So that's become particularly useful. And so, yeah, clairvisually, the way it kind of works to sort of drill into the details. When I'm working on the person, I ask my subconscious to show me what I need to remove. And what it does is it shows me in like a pack of cards, if you like. So I might see an entity here, implant on the brain here, and so I'm just going through and I'm clearing with intention, and with a little help of the pendulum that I use as well. So yeah, it's a combination of all those things, and people come to me with different issues, different problems. Most of the time, people are saying they feel drained, because that's what these entities do. They drain our energy. So if you've got a lot of attachments, you know, that if you're feeling drained a lot of the time, then chances are that there might be some stuff there that's dragging you down a little bit, let's say. So but I think it's also important to note that although perhaps it is a little bit of a darker subject, it's very important not to be fearful. You know, these forces are really more scared of us than we are of them, or we should be of them anyway, because, as I said before, they know how powerful we are. And their whole gig is to stay hidden and in the hope that no one finds out about them. But of course, people are starting to find out about them, and yeah, so they're literally like mosquitoes. They're like parasites. They're energetic parasites, and they just, you know, they need like flicking off. You know what I mean? So sometimes, you know, when I talk about these things, it's a little bit of a sensitive subject, because, you know, people want to believe in all the good stuff, and I get that, but it's very important that we have a balanced, rounded approach to things, and we need to look at both sides, because if we only look at one side, then you know, we're leaving the other side to chance. And so yeah, it's really important to everything I'm talking about, you know, basically we're dealing with mosquitoes, and we're like the big elephant with all the power and the strength. and they're just trying to feed on us. They're the little ticks. So yeah, that's basically how I do it. Combination of intention, pendulum work, clear visual abilities, and experience.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. And we are honored to have you sharing your special offer, which is a clearing session, private session with you. We can talk more about that in a little bit. But I wanted to just say, as you're talking, it brings to mind, I think maybe we talked about this once before on another show. Have you gone diving at night? Scuba
Yes, I have.
diving? Yeah,
Yes,
scuba
yeah.
diving at night. Now
I
that
love
is
scuba diving.
scuba diving is wonderful, right? I have not
We did
eaten.
talk about this, didn't we? I remember now.
We did, yeah. I do not eat calamari anymore after seeing the beauty of squid in the water. They're
Yeah.
electric. They're so beautiful. But when you go on a night dive and you have your flashlight, the amount of critters, minuscule things that appear around that light
Hmm.
is amazing. And so that's really, as we're talking about awareness versus fear, we're not here to spread fear, but it is an awareness that our bright light, as we hold light, as we elevate in our light quotient, that's going to attract more of these things. So then how would one know? And then what are some of the tools that we can use besides getting a clearing with you? How
Hmm.
would we know that there's something going on? For example, you mentioned AI implants.
Hmm.
That's very interesting. And the serpent entities.
Hmm. Hmm.
Talk more about any of those and how we would know.
The thing is with it, the interesting thing with it is we're most of us are so used to having this stuff on us the whole time. We don't even we think of it as normal. And I won't go into the long story of how I even got into all of this, but it came from it came from me feeling so bad that I had a clearing with someone else that does similar to this. She doesn't do it anymore, but it was so profound the difference when I woke up the next morning. She worked on me remotely, and I couldn't believe that these voices in my head had gone. And I
Wow.
was like, walking around. I'm like, my head is silent. For the first time in my life, my head is silent, and I just felt I just felt a general lifting in my whole energy field. And even to this day, when I talk about it, it gives me goosebumps because it was a defining moment in my life because I realized a lot of things then. Because until that point, I wasn't aware of all this stuff. And then when I had that clear, and I was like, oh, okay, well, this stuff is this is really going on then because it was such a big difference. So it's so normal for us to feel dense and heavy and have these mind loops. I mean, if you actually observe your mind, most of us anyway, depending, you're it's always like looking for something to either put us down or looking for the next problem that it's like, you're no good enough, you don't like this, you can't do that, you're going to fail, like it's constant. And it's like, what is that I wouldn't choose to think that, it's like I would never choose to talk about myself in that way, right? I mean, don't get me wrong, we have our subconscious wounds and unhealed trauma where, we're kind of replaying timelines a little bit, which incidentally these entities hook into and turn the volume up on them. That creates more of that fear and anxiety. So that's a reason inner work's so important. But um, it's how would you know is a very interesting question because you wouldn't know because you've probably been so used to having this all your life. I mean, it does get more extreme for people the more interference they get in terms of, they really start to feel drained and it will become very obvious that there's stronger stuff going on. But yeah, constant voices in the head that feel like they're not your own. For example, the other thing that they may do, just say you're sitting there, I don't know, you're on the balcony, you're just minding your own business, and life's good. And then all of a sudden, you'll start, for no reason, start getting this invasive thoughts, or you'll start really worrying about something, and you'll be like, where did that even come from? I was sitting here, I was having a juice on my balcony, life was good, and now I'm in this like mindset where I'm worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow. And I'm starting to think that Joe Blogs down the road doesn't like me. And what happened? Where did I get to that? That's because when you were sitting on your balcony, your frequency was, you was at a good frequency, and that echoes out into time and space. That can affect other people in a positive way as well. And I don't mean just sort of raising your frequency just in terms of like thinking happy thoughts and stuff. I'm talking about, real organic, where you've done a lot of work on yourself and things like that. And you'll be like, where did that even come from? Why is it, have I gone from feeling good and now I'm into a state of angst and I've got all these invasive thoughts? Well, that's probably some kind of level of interference that's come in. So be very mindful when and observant of your thoughts, and you're always wanting to question, okay, that thought I just had about Joe Blogs, is that mine, or is that is that coming from something else? So what they're trying to do there is they're trying to shift your mood. Where you are feeling good, you're feeling happy, and and they're like, oh, that Tony, like, we need to knock him down a peg or two. Let's get in his head and get him obsessing about this problem, or looking for this, and so then all of a sudden you've gone from here down to here. And now you're, it's a win for them, right? Because you're now like, and then you're into anxiety and depression, and so what they're trying to do is they're always trying to take you off your kind of like your highest path and your highest frequency. So, because it's through frequency that this is all going to come to an end. Basically, that's why they need to keep it so dense, and all the stuff that they're doing with war and famine and all that stuff, they need to keep it low, and they need to keep it dense, and they need to keep your frequency low and dense as well, because they don't want you expanded. So how would you know? Well, it's only really until you clear it that you'll know that you had a lot of it, because you'll be like, oh my God, I feel like a new person. And it's almost, I liken it to, imagine that you're carrying or you're pulling along a 4x4 with a couple of ropes, right? And you've been carrying this 4x4 along all your life, and then someone just comes and snips those ropes, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God. So quite often it becomes self-evident really after you've had a clearing that you had all this stuff, and you'll come to the conclusion that, my God, I never realized that I could feel so good, because you never felt like that before, because you've got all these attachments and overlays and implants and stuff. So the human energy field is incredible. I mean, we have worlds within us, and yeah, the interference is correlated to just how strong and powerful we are. And people are like, oh, I'm not sure about all this. Is all this interference. It's like, yeah, because you're incredibly powerful, and they need to knock you down a peg or two. So again, flipping it to looking at it as a positive, that they need to do this, because if they left humans unchecked to just create on their own without any, I mean, we would create an absolute utopia here without their interference and all the stuff that they've brought to this planet, and that's their gig. I mean, it's a pathetic and sad existence that they have, in the fact that that's what they need to do. That's what they need to do to survive. And they need, their caviar is all the low frequency energy. Again, this is why we have constant wars and all this stuff, and so they feed on our energy, but they particularly like the low frequency, the low vibrational energy. So that's like their caviar.
Wow. Okay. So, for those who feel stuck or blocked, this is something that would be very beneficial as well. And so If we all have them in various ways, then this is really important work. Now, what would you say about society? Because our society, egregores, things like that, thought forms from our society, maybe even our religions, can come in and create these attachments as well, right? So how
Absolutely.
much would you say is it from our world that we live in? It's just, is it par for the course? And this great awakening that's happening,
Hmm.
are they accelerating as this great awakening happens?
Yeah, well, I've been doing this work 10 years now, and what I'm finding with clients is they're up in the ante in terms of their interference, the hijacking. They're actually very scared, right? Again, this is the positive side of things. So they're up in their ante, and people are getting more and more interfered with as we sort of get to this sort of crescendo, I guess, of what's happening here. So I just lost my train of thought. What did you ask me?
And no, I'm just, it's wonderful because, as we all ascend, then these entities are coming after us.
Hmm.
Attachments are coming after us. But what about thought forms,
Oh
egregores?
yeah, that was what you asked me. Yeah. So yeah, in terms of psychic energy, thought form entities, so so we have interference from these lower astral beings, if you like, but we can also do it to each other as well in terms of psychic energy, psychic attacks, even attacks coming across on social media. Everything's energy, right? And so, for example, I might work on a person and they've got a particularly toxic uh, battle going on with an ex-boyfriend or an ex-partner or something like that, and it's being dragged through the courts, and then you're pulling off a load of the other person's energy, because if you have a thought like I hate you, or I want you to die, or anything like that's an energetic attack that sticks on that person's energy field and literally needs removing. So we exchange energy in terms of our thought forms. You're absolutely right. And we can actually create thought form entities as well. So just say you're obsessing over a person, or a person's obsessing over you. Maybe they're really jealous. Like, we've all been in those situations where a person around has just been insanely jealous. It's almost like an obsession. So that can get to a point where that person is so obsessive and they're putting so much energy into you that it actually creates a thought form entity that can stick on your energy field and then start draining you. So it's a very, very real thing. Um, and yeah, so we've got to be very conscious of I guess, the thoughts that we have about other people, and yeah, the thing is, like I said before, we're not taught this stuff, right? So we're all just sort of learning it now. But yeah, human exchange, energy exchange, psychic energy, all that kind of stuff is absolutely real for sure.
Wow. Okay. So one way to do this inner work is to get a session with you, to have an outside facilitator assist in removing this, because again, you do the work with the pendulum and you're clairvoyant and you can see things and you listen in that way. It's very helpful. But what can we do? Is there a protocol that you can offer, a simple protocol for everyone to just kind of keep it a little bit clean, little clean energetics?
Well, you can start with I can go over a basic technique that will perhaps get people sort of started off. I guess you could call it the waterfall technique. So you could basically, what you need to do is you just you imagine a waterfall at the top of your head, which is basically your energy. And so what you can do is you can program your energy. So let's just say we're going to program the energy to clear let's just say entity attachments. And so then what you're looking to do is you are looking to clear visually or using your conscious imagination to have that energy cascade down one side of your body, all the way down, down your arm, your leg, and then back up, and then cycle around the other side and down up that arm of the shoulder, the neck, and then you're looking to loop it around. So swirling around, round and round and round. And if you started off by doing this for like 5-10 minutes, you might feel tired when you first start doing it, because when you first start energy training, you can feel a little bit tired. So you might have to build up. So you start with 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and you just cycle that around. And then you can do it locally as well. So for example, if you said, I want to clear implants in my brain, etheric implants, and so then you're looping that around. The main thing is intention. Intention is very powerful, and so yeah, they're like the basic techniques that you could try to start with clearing stuff. But of course, you know, there's a lot of other things as well that need to be removed. But you can definitely start with the basic, or just say you've been around. You get home, you've been around Joe Bloggs. Joe Bloggs has been draining your energy. He's been talking nonstop. You can feel him literally grabbing your energy, and you come home and you're completely drained. You're like, oh, that Joe Bloggs, my God. So you just use the waterfall technique. So program it, clear Joe Bloggs' energy, any psychic energy, psychic attacks, and just do the same thing and loop that around. And then you should feel little shifts, and just clear anything that's come off of him. And so you can play around with it. Like I say, you can localize it. That would be a very basic sort of first little technique that people can practice and maybe build themselves up.
Thank you for sharing that. It's really helpful, because I know we've all been in those situations, and now that we're more aware that that's going on, that the mind looping, the thought looping, that's not ours. We don't have to carry that anymore. And so these are just really good tools for us to keep it clean energetically.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, you mentioned that something really interesting, AI implants.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by that?
So what I mean by that is, where you have a physical brain, you also have an energetic brain in the astral. Physical heart, energetic heart, physical lung, all your organs, all your nervous system, they exist on a 3D level and also in the astral realm. And it's at the 4D level, the astral realm, where we're being implanted. So these are etheric implants. So, and they can affect us physically. So an example of an AI implant is perhaps all of a sudden you start to have problems with your memory. You know, you can't, you wake up one day and you just feel hazy. Things don't feel like they did before. You just you're forgetful. You can't remember basic things. That may be to do with some kind of etheric implant. Maybe they did it at night. You woke up and you're just a little bit foggy. Their whole gig is anything to slow down our cognitive functioning, memory, anything to, maybe hijack our discernment process. They don't want us discerning information. So, and I'm sure they have a bunch of other reasons as well. And so what they do is they implant us on the astral side, and that can affect us physically. So the same thing with clearing entities. What I will do is, for example, if it's a memory problem or the person tells me they've got some kind of cognitive issue, then I'll just ask my subconscious to show me any etheric implants in the brain, and I even localize them to the brain. I might go, show me on the neocortex or the frontal lobe, and I really get local with the brain and get into all the parts of it to really clear those areas. And so a lot of the interestingly enough, a lot of the we know Elon Musk wants to put chips in people's brains and technology in people's brains. Well, a lot of what's coming out now in terms of the neuronet, the neurolace, all that stuff, that's already there in 4D. It's already there in the astral. So a lot of the technology that we're seeing coming out now from the likes of Musk and stuff is already exists in 4D, and now it's just starting to come out in 3D physical, sort of as above, so below. So yeah, when you remove those implants, then obviously, you know, it restores the functioning of the brain and that kind of thing. So it can leave you with a bit of a headache because energetically, a lot of these implants are quite heavy. So, you know, after a session, sometimes people report having a headache. I always give people heads up about the side effects anyway. So that's covered in the start of the session. But yeah, so and as I say, you know, the heart's very targeted by implants, the throat. They don't want people speaking up. They don't want people speaking their truth. Also what they'll do is, I think I mentioned earlier, is they'll hook in on the subconscious wounds, not only with entities but also implants. So, for example, if you had issues in your childhood where it wasn't safe to speak up, I've done regression sessions with clients and stuff where we've actually found an implant in the throat which was hooked into a wound where it wasn't safe for them to speak. So they hook in and they up the ante on it to amplify it. It's all about amplifying our issues that we have. So if you have a feeling of not feeling good enough, not feeling worthy, they'll get in on that and they'll either implant or attach into it and then turn it up so it becomes a constant. So
Oh,
yeah, the implants are basically implanted on the astral level. I mean, there are physical implants as well. There's people that, I mean, that's a whole different rabbit hole that we probably don't need to go into in this show. It'd take too long. But in terms of etheric implants, that's basically what I'm talking about. And it's the whole body, really. They target absolutely everywhere. So because everything in the body is linked. If you well, we know through acupuncture, you know, if you press the end of your toe, it can affect your heart, right? Or things like that. So it's very much one organism, and so they will implant wherever they can. So, but sometimes people will just feel a lot of people will say, I can't really feel the flow of my heart. That was the other thing for me. And another thing that we're so used to, we're so used to not feeling the energy in our heart, and it feels so good when you can feel that flow. Um, so once you remove a lot of the junk there, people are like, oh my God, I can feel my heart energy. It feels all warm, feels nice, feel you can feel like that love energy flowing around again. And of course, that's they try and like cap that with all the stuff that they do. So yeah.
wow. Okay. Again, thank you for explaining. It's really fascinating. Again, it's not to go into fear, but it makes sense when we look at ourselves and see where, you know, we have got knocked off kilter. What I find fascinating, I find it really fascinating because I consider myself a strong person, confident and the like. When I get on social media, very interesting. I feel less than.
Mm.
What do you think's going on there? Do you think it's just reflecting the energy that's out there? Is there something going on, or my goodness?
When you say you feel less than, you feel like you start getting these feelings of lack of self-worth. And
Yes, and maybe it's comparing, maybe it's the whole platform, seeing people presenting themselves like, oh, my life is great. Maybe it's a comparing
mm,
oneself with another. We always suffer when we compare ourselves with another. But
yeah,
I
yeah.
just would like your take on that because there's more to it than just that, I think.
Yeah. So I think maybe somewhere in your subconscious there may be an aspect where perhaps you were made not to feel good enough, maybe as a child or you know an infant, and so maybe that's still there. So not saying that you haven't done any work on yourself, I'm sure that you have, but there's a blind spot that you've missed. Maybe there's something that's still there that you know, even if they're not using it against you, now you've said it, it's sort of brought an awareness to it. So to compare yourself to others means that you feel like you're not worthy in some way. Maybe not all the time, like you say, you're confident, Jen. Consciously, you know, we have certain ways that we are, but maybe in the background, in the subconscious, there's maybe some kind of blind spot there that's still running. Um, and I would say that, I mean, I'm pretty sure that something about being online and just the frequency of the internet. It's, I mean, what is it? Five? We won't say it, but you know what? Five. Uh, the recent upgrade, let's say, that we all have on our phones and everything like that. I mean, that's completely abnormal to a human in terms of what it does to their energy field. And again, going back to what I was saying, when you alter your frequency or your consciousness, then you're open to interference coming in. So maybe when you go online, the frequency of just being online does something, and then maybe something hooks in. Go, oh right, let's get in on a not feeling worthy wound, and let's turn that up. So that's probably something like what's going on now, I would imagine.
Okay.
Or you're just seeing people like you say, and you're like, oh, look at her, like, you know, and it's making you just feel a tad little bit insecure, and then they're like, "Vroom," and then all of a sudden you're going around like, oh my God. So
Yeah. I mean, it's just uncanny. I mean, I'm aware of it. And
mm.
so it's just very interesting.
Yeah, I mean the wound of not feeling good enough, not feeling worthy is one that I would say everyone on this planet has to some degree or another. I don't think there's anyone on this planet that wasn't made to feel like that at some point in their life. Um, you know, we've all had trauma. Some people have had more than others. But let's face it, up until now, you know, we're kind of like a slave race, right? And so we've always been, you know, been told. I mean, the government tells us now every day that, you know, we're destroying the planet. They're always telling us how annoying we are, how there's too many of us here, and we should be wiped off. So we've always been told that we're not good enough. And I
Mhm.
think that you know, when you look into ancestral stuff as well. I mean, I went just some work that I did, my own inner work that I did. I remember one session I had with my therapist, and we went back to a memory of my baby in the womb, and it had all like this black goo on him. And I asked the baby what it was, and it was like, that's your mum's projection of not feeling good enough, not feeling worthy. That's, you took that on at birth, right? And so I had to energetically clear all that off of me, and so we can take things on from our parents, and they've probably taken that on from their parents. So there's generational wounds that these you know, these lower frequency beings can hook into. It's a very, very deep rabbit hole.
Uh-huh.
It's very interesting when you learn how they use and manipulate, and yeah, it's a show that we could talk for 3 or 4 hours on. I mean, you start getting into things like mental illnesses and what they are, and you know, all this, for me, they're basically just very, people like schizophrenics. They're just basically have a very strong entity attachment because they all act in the same way. These people act in the same way. Had a very interesting guy on my YouTube channel talking that he was worked in um, a psychiatric ward for 30 years, and he's like, Tony, these they all act the same way. It can't be a mental illness. And yeah, just stories from that. You know, these are just entities working through people.
Mm-hmm. Yes. All right. Well, you are going to be a busy guy because I can sense that people will want to have you facilitate a session for them and help them be clear in their mental thought processes, in their physicality, in their etheric realm. So thank you for this. We're going to talk in just a moment about the special offer sessions that you do with people. But you know, you mentioned in the womb and ancestral. What about past lives? Have you ever come across these attachments from past lives, wounds from past lives? What's that about?
Yeah, they're what I call generational entities. So in my multi-dimensional timeline therapy sessions, we do these regressions. Oh my God, it's so interesting, some of the stuff that comes out. And yeah, so I went back to with a client a moment in time in a life. Can't remember where she was, in Poland or something, where there was some kind of abuse that went on, and there was like an entity transference, and we found out that this entity had been working all the way through for many generations up until this day. So we had to clear it. So there's definitely generational entities as well. So that's definitely a thing.
And so if we just briefly mention that if this continues without unchecked, then it could lead to physical ailments as well.
Yeah, and what they do is they'll hook in on any physical issues that you have. So let's just say you have an old shoulder injury or something, then they will hook in on that, and potentially turn the volume up on that, make the pain worse. So I've had sessions with clients, and I don't want to overpromise, but we have had some instances where some physical pain, physical issues have completely cleared up after. Not always, but it's happened regularly enough for me to be able to say that, with you here. So, because when you clear this stuff, imagine all this stuff is holding a lot of your energy. So when you clear it, you suddenly have access to that energy again. Wow. So if you have more energy, you have more ability to heal. And so the knock-on effect can be, things can clear up. But yeah, physical issues, any physical issues that you have, they will amplify that and use those if they can. Things like pharmaceutical drugs are just really as potentially harmful as recreational drugs, because again, they alter your consciousness. So yeah, if you can, you want to try and avoid any kind of drugs, but people assume that, well, a lot of people know what pharmaceutical drugs are as well, but a lot of people aren't aware of perhaps the way that they also can potentially open you up as well. So yeah, they will definitely, the way these beings work is any weakness that you have, that they will hook into it and try and make a problem out of it. And of course, I mean, we're getting onto a whole another topic, but what is most people's weakness? They want love, right? We all want love. Who doesn't want love, right? We all want it. And it can go as far as where they can, set up potentially harmful relationships in terms of love bite relationships and things like that, where again, if you're a person that's going to be a problem for them, and this happened to me, just interestingly enough, just before I got into this work, right, they set up a scenario with someone who on the surface appeared everything that you ever wanted, but 2-3 months down the line, it was, I won't go into the details, but it was absolute chaos. And a lot of people have experienced these kind of situations where a love interest will come in. And I'm not saying it's all like that. I'm not saying that, we can't find love and there's not someone special out there for people. Please don't misquote me. But all I'm saying is that it's very important to be discerning with who you let in your inner circle, because, we are in spiritual battle here. And one of the easiest ways they can get someone off their path is to wreck their life with a toxic person that's basically a human vessel, which is hosted by an entity. So it's a very deep rabbit hole, but yeah, I mean, love is the need for love, and the want for love is one of our, it's a strength and a weakness, right? Because without love, what are we really? But they will try and use that to their advantage. So we just need to be a little bit careful with who we're allowing close to us.
Wow. Okay. Well, you have provided us with some interesting things to contemplate about our own selves, an awareness, a new awareness. And it really is important as we are on this path of increasing our light quotient. So as we do that, becoming aware of these anomalies, these entities is really important. So again, the work that you're doing is very beneficial for those who are aware that such is going on in their life. So now tell us about ways that people work with you. What goes on in a session? How long is it? And it's very unique to each individual.
Yeah, it is because, as I said before, there'll be certain stuff that everyone has, and there'll be stuff that's tailored for Lauren, for example. Um, it really is a case of, yeah, like I say, knowing where to look. One of the first things I'll do is clear out the nervous system, because the
Mhm,
entities, they like it in the nervous system. It's easy food for them. Every time you get triggered, it's like
mhm,
feeding day at the zoo for them. So I know that with everyone that I work at, I'm gonna have to look at that area for them. Um, I'll start with just basically I have a list of different entity races, and then I'll just work through the list and clear any that's on the list, and then same goes for the implants. Have a list in my head, and then after I've cleared all the general basics, I'll get into psychic energy, psychic attacks, thought form entities, clean up the energy bodies, realign the physical body energetically. Um, and then the last part of the session is really where I'm just sort of remote viewing and clear visually, just as I said before, just asking my subconscious to show me the most important things that need removing. And it will just be like, yeah, like entity implant here or something there. And so I'll just be working, working, working. And it normally lasts for about an hour, because I'm in the astral. I'm working in the astral. Everything is instant there, so every single second something different's being removed.
mhm.
Yeah, we can get most things done within the hour. So there's that, and then the multi-dimensional timeline therapy is kind of like inner work, but it goes deeper than that, because um, I think the difference with my version of inner work is that it takes into the account of entities and things like that. A lot of other modalities don't really do that. And what I'm looking for is not only to uh, transmute and change those holographic imprints that are stuck in time and space, those inner children that are stuck there in trauma. We're looking to work with those, but then we're looking to see where, okay, that child has an abandonment wound. Does that go back to is that coming from mum's side or dad's? Is this just hers, or is this come from the generations? Is it mum's side? Is it dad's side? Is it both? Okay, it's both. So we need to, how many generations is it? 7 generations. So we'll look to bring in the 7 generations, clear that wound from the generational line. And then we're looking at things like ancestral entities that may have got in, or any ancestral implants, past life stuff as well. So really, both the sessions are effective in different ways. Normally, people maybe want to have a clearing session first, and then move on to the multidimensional timeline therapy, where we look to plug the holes of the subconscious of that person with the inner work. So these entities have less ways to hook in on, and so we continue to have more of a peaceful mind and a quiet mind.
Wow, thank you. It feels good to see that so much can go on in one session, and then to advance it in the next session with the multi-dimensional timeline therapy.
Yeah.
Really fascinating. I mean, very thorough, very
Yeah.
thorough.
If someone works with me for a period of time, I'm pretty confident they can completely change, for the better, obviously. Um, so yeah, I love what I do. I love working with clients longer term as well, because of
Mhm.
course, I get paid and I get to see them, but I get to see the progress that they make. And for example, someone who comes to me and they've got all these feelings of not feeling good enough and not worthy, and then after 3 or 4 weeks, you start to see that they're dressing more glamorously. Then they'll come out with stories of how they spoke up and they would never have spoken up before, and things like that. So for me, I feel very honored to go on that journey with people, um, and really help them to step into their power. And I guess my thing is it's to not sit in the dark, but acknowledge the dark and transmute the dark, rather than just ignore the fact that it's there, which I don't think is helpful.
Yes. Transmute the Dark with Tony Sayers. Thank you, thank you, thank you for the work that you do. Again, it is trudging on the dark side only to bring in more light and liberate those who are ready for this work. Again, I just thank you for being bold and courageous in this way. And I can hear a question from our audience. What do you do? Do you have to, after a session, do these things try to attach to you too? And do you have to clear your energy?
I have to clear myself daily because of what I do. They don't like me. They don't like what I do. And one day I'm going to write a book about the stuff that goes on, between people booking a session and the session actually taking place. Uh,
Ah,
Internet going down, people lose their wallet so they can't pay me. I've had people tell me that I've shown up in the dreams as the devil and stuff. Like they really hate the work. And yeah, the voices in the head trying to get people to cancel and stuff like this is really, I find it funny now. But yeah, it's, and also just another thing to add, that yeah, if people are, if people even start thinking about doing this work, then they may get interfered with a little bit more so leading up to that, because yeah, these entities, they know that they're toast, and they know through doing the deep inner work, the ancestral clearing, their frequency is organically going to expand, and in a very real, authentic way. And that's not good for them. It's not good for what they're trying to do to this planet and what they're trying to do to us.
well, thank you for being a servant of the light and for doing this work. And those entities, do they go back to the light?
They no, I delete them. So you imagine that the astral realm is like a computer game. When you used to play computer games, and you used to just shoot a monster and it would just boom, delete. That's basically how it works. So there's no sending it to the light or anything like that. It's just, they're kind of like AI programs. So yeah, they just need deleting.
They just need deleting. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. And for all of those watching and listening, please check out this page that you're watching this program on, or the link in the description box, wherever you're watching or listening to this program will get you to Tony's special offer. He is available to assist you. And Tony, we are so grateful again for your courage, your bravery, and the light work that you're doing on our planet. As we say goodbye, any final thoughts?
No, just thank you for providing the space today, and yeah, for the things that you do. And yeah, I look forward to hopefully working with some of the listeners.
Yes, I can sense that there are those who are excited for that, ready to be liberated. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you all for watching too. If Tony can be of service in your life, check out this option for you. It's a great opportunity to move forward in your life and to clear out some things. Thank you, thank you, thank you for this beautiful conversation, Tony. Namaste.
Or
This has been a presentation of New Earth One Network, your home for New Earth living. Access information, education, and videos on living from the heart in unity consciousness. Visit newearth1.com.